Sorry, but this is what happens when you're not in your own daladamas and you have your own connections. I'm elsewhere. Please forgive me. Anyway, so the
Happens in my own daladamas too.
anyway, so he gives out that sukkahs, and the only other time that Rebbe did that was in 1951, the first year of his leadership. He stood, and there probably only 200 people, if that many. Jump to 1991, 40 years later, he does the same thing, and then that following Chav Zayin Adar, he has a stroke. So that's just a very, and that same year, in other words, he gives out this kuntras with a piece of honey cake. So if you put everything together, I think you could see that this isn't just him deciding to give us some sweets. I mean, this was a very he was trying to break a gzeira. The Rebbe was trying to break a gzeira, and he was hoping that the schus of everyone making the brach and him answering it to it, and the honey cake would break it, but it didn't. That's the way it is. You try. So anyway, this is a little background about the Maamar. Any questions before we go into the text about the history of this Maamar? Okay. The Maamar has become kind of the last will and testament of the Rebbe. And it's learned always before Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's yahrzeit. You know that. And the reason is because it's the last Maamar that he gave us. So it's become by Chabad like that type of a testament, a will and testament. And we'll learn it now between now and Hashem and the yahrzeit. I think it'll become clearer to you why it's the last will and testament, because the messages here are very profound as far as the future. It talks about the past, talks about the present, but it also gives a very strong kind of futuristic look. And those Hasidim that are attentive to that know that, and they look towards that as the Rebbe kind of alluding to, hey, my time is coming, and we have here thousands and thousands of Hasidim and worldwide, and you need some guidance. Well, look into this Maamar, and you'll find guidance, and you'll work with mashpiyim and rabbonim, etc. And you'll go to the doctor for medical things, not to the social worker for hardcore medicine. You'll go to the social worker for mental health issues, not to the doctor. And you'll go to Moshe Braun for beautiful art, tefillin, mezuzahs, and safras. Everyone has to know what they're good at and what they do. And we who seek advice have to go to the right person. Last night here in Shul, someone mentions that he went to some mashpia told him, and two of us that were listening to the fellow looked at each other like that's pretty strange advice. We didn't say anything because we don't want to be rude, but he asked, what do you think about it? So then we both said, it's not conventional, it's not conventional, and we both said you might want to get another mashpia. And by the way, the Rebbe said it. When the Rebbe came out with the campaign of Aseh Lecha Rav, make for yourself, it says in Pirkei Avos, make for yourself a rabbi, a teacher, and someone passed him on the line. He said, Rebbe, but my teacher told me this, my Rav told me this. The Rebbe said, get a new Rav. It's okay. Now, of course, it doesn't mean a Rav who's paskening shilas in halacha. I want to make that clear. We're talking about a mashpia, a Rav in the sense of a teacher, a guide. And sometimes a Rav, as well-meaning as he is, he's not plugged in to that particular field, okay? It's nothing against the Rav, but a Rav who has no idea of mental health and decides to give advice on mental health, it's erroneous. It's wrong. Everyone has to know what they're good at. So anyway, that's also part of the importance of this Maamar, as kind of a guide, you'll see later, of how you should search for a teacher, a Rav, a mashpia, etc. Let's learn a little bit inside. Beis Hamachdalet Shabbos Parshas Titzave Yud Rishon Adar Rishon Tovshim Memal of 1981. V'yata Titzaves Bnei Yisrael v'yikwei lecho Shem Azayis Zoch Kosses Lamoy. You should. Hashem says to Moshe, you shall command the Yidden to take olive oil, pure olive oil, crushed for its luminary. All this will be examined soon. Lahalish Ner Tomit, to elevate, to ignite a continuous flame. V'yiduyim hadayukim bezeh. It's known the questions on this verse. The bechol hatzivuyim shatayra nemar, in all commandments that the Torah commands, Hashem commands. It says nemar tzavas b'nei Yisrael. You shall command Israel. Ukayotzebay, and similar to that language. But over here we have an awkward way of saying the same thing. V'atot tzavas b'nei Yisrael. It doesn't. You, Moshe, should command the Jews. It doesn't say that. It says Daber el b'nei Yisrael. Why over here does it say this different language to the same idea, which means Moshe should speak to the Jews? That's one question. And the Rebbe says, and to add to this, Hadiuk Mashakosa v'ata Titzave hulei rak ba'aloshin elegam ba'toichin. The Rebbe says this question isn't only about the words, but also the content. The loshin v'ata Titzave mashba shamoisha hu amatzave. When you say you shall command, who is the you? We're talking to Moshe. We must understand Hari Moshe who hashliach limsoy liyisrael tzivei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe is the emissary, the agent, to communicate God's command to the Jews. If that's the case, why does it say v'ata tetzave? You, Moshe, shall command. He's not commanding. Who's commanding? Hashem is commanding through Moshe, the translator, the intermediary. So the Rebbe is adding to the question that's brought in other discourses that not only is it a linguistic question, that this is different than the other times, the way the instruction is given, but more so, it seems contradictory. Because in general, we know that because we know that the commandment is coming from God, Hashem. So what do you mean, va'ata tetzave? You shall command. No, I'm commanding. Hashem is commanding. That is the second question here. And he continues. Question number 3. Gam tzarech lahav, and we also must understand mashakoso v'yikhu elecha. Take for yourself, to yourself. Sheyaviu Hashem en leMoshe. That the Yidden should bring the oil to Moshe. Elecha. Elecha, from the verse, means to you, Moshe. Ulechoira, seemingly, kivin shehaloas haneres hoisayidei Aaron, since the igniting of the candles in the Mishkan, of the menorah, was through Aaron. Why do you have to bring the oil to Moshe? Why can't you excuse me? Why can't you give it directly to Aaron? That's the question. Okay. The Lechaira have a 1 second. Yeah. Number 5. Gam tzorech lahavin. Also, we must understand mashakosu shemen kosis lamoy. Bring oil, refined oil, shemen zoch. But then it says these two strange words, kosis lamoy, crushed for illumination. Havalela meimar, the verse should have said, shemen lahoyer. Bring oil to Moshe to ignite the menorah, lahoyer, to brighten, to shine. What is this kosis lamor? Crushed to the source of light, lamor, the illuminary, not the illumination. Question number 6. We must also understand the pasuk shalach, because if you look into the next verse, it says Omam Erev Ad Boker, that the candles should be lit from evening till morning in the Mishkan. How does that fit with what it says in this verse? And here in this verse it says Lahalas Ner Tamid. It should be elevated and lit and illuminated continuously. Ner Tamid, like you have the Ner Tamid in your shul, in every shul. So make up your mind. Is it Ner Tamid or is it just Me'erev Ad Boker? 6 questions on the verse. Here begins the explanation. Yes, Moshe.
Maybe I missed this in the beginning, but some time ago in our shir, we learned the Maamar Vata Titzave, but from the Frierdiker Rebbe, didn't we?
If we learned it, we must have learned it 2-3 years ago. And if we learned it more 5 years ago, so I think the refresher course is good. Number 2, I believe if we learned Vata Titzave, it's this mimer. The Frierdiker Rebbe, wait, look at the next paragraph. He begins with the previous Rebbe's mimer. That's why you're thinking Frierdiker Rebbe.
Well, I just remember that we learned this. I was just a little confused because I seem to remember the mimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe had the same title, Vata Titzave. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I don't recall. I don't recall the beginning of a mimer with that caption from the previous Rebbe, and if it is, it's not this one.
Okay, I'll check it home.
You check.
It's in that 3-volume set.
Yeah, no, it's this mimer. It's this mimer, Moshe. Oh, wait. What?
He's about to say that the mimer that we learned was V'kabel Yehudim.
V'kiba Yehudim. Right, but Moshe is saying he remembers a mimer in that 3-volume set. Okay, you'll check it out and let me know, okay? Let's go, let's learn a little further. My father-in-law, the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, but Maimon Ayadu and his famous Maimon Divra Masel Kibla Yehudim, with the opening phrase of Kibla Yehudim, the Jews accepted upon themselves what they initially started, what they accepted at Mount Sinai, and here they confirmed there was the confirmation. Shenema Bepurim, the Maimer Bepurim Cotton. This mimer, the previous Rebbe, was said on Purim Cotton, Tofresh Pezai in 1927. I was in the shul in where the Rebbe said this mimer. It's the large Harel shul in Moscow, and the side room there, they had what was called the Hasidic Minyan, a combination of Chabadniks and Breslover. I believe it was run by Chabad, and I believe the Frierdiker Rebbe said the mimer somewhere there. Today, that's been demolished and attached as a social hall to the main shul. But someone who knew the history took me around. So that was the mimer that Rebbe said, and the KGB were there and looking for him and all that, and he wasn't scared. A lot of history to that. So that's the mimer he's talking about. Let's go. So it says in that mimer that Tzivui Titzave, that when you say the word commanded, it comes also from the Aramaic word, even though tzivui is Hebrew, but it has an association to the Aramaic word tzafsa, which means v'chibur. Chibur is Hebrew, connection. Commandment means that when Hashem commands us to do a mitzvah, Hillel, that itself is the connection. Okay? That itself is the way you bind yourself to God. So the word Isser, commandment, has like, I'm superimposing and telling you what to do. Says Hasidus, Chabad, that it's not that way. Of course God's telling us, but Hashem is giving us an opportunity to connect. And he's telling you that if you do the mitzvah this way, you're going to connect to me. So it's a whole different outlook, you understand? When you tell someone, hey, you better do it this way, the guy says, go somewhere. When you tell someone, You have an opportunity, Velvel. You have an opportunity to connect to Hashem. How? By doing this way. The guy says, I want to hear. I want to hear. So here you see again, just for a moment, how this Taich and Chassidus makes such a difference to many people who are not, able to hear it, do this, especially today. When you say do this, they say go somewhere, right? I'm talking about frum people, I'm not talking about non-religious people. Don't tell me what to do. But if you tell them that the mitzvah is about connection, they say, oh, connection I want. Like the story I told you with the girl in Berkeley going home Shabbos, and when I said I started to speak about God, she says, don't mention that. I don't believe in a God, no gods. I said, okay, what about a force or an energy? Yeah. A force and an energy, that, yeah. Right? You gotta, when in Berkeley, talk Berkeley language. Don't talk God, talk force and energy. That's that was 40 years ago. So it probably still exists. Anyway, so when you look at a mitzvah and you say mitzvah's commandment, it's a very strong word. And I'm not saying that we should hide that. I'm not suggesting that, but to understand that, and that's why Chassidus says right here, the beginning, Miloshen Tzafsa v'chibur. In other words, I want to just add, the Taich of Chassidus is not to sweet tooth the situation. That's a mistake people make. Oh, like Chabad, they let you come into the Chabad house, do whatever sins you want, but us and other institutions, no, we tell you right away what you should do and shouldn't do. You hear this, I don't know if in Eretz Yisrael, but I hear it every day, okay? It's a mistake. This is not the sweet. The Rebbe's, when the Lubavitcher Rebbeim say that Sivi Meloshen Tzavsa v'chibur, they're telling you that the real meaning of the commandment is a connection. It's not second tier, it's first tier. This is when we learn Chassidus, we open our minds, and again, people don't necessarily agree and won't listen, and that's their issue, But if you study properly, you understand it's not about the commandment as a stern ruler with a stick, but rather connection. Let's go on. The Rebbe says, this explains why it says, and you, Moshe, shall command the Jewish people. You are to make it possible for the connection between the Jews and the infinite God. And we need a Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayidei Moshe, and through Moshe, Mashpia Yisrael, he's Mashpia. He gives effluence to the Jews, he impacts them. Shemekasher itam im ein sof baruch hu. Moshe, by being the intermediary and the one to deliver the message to the Jewish people, in this case, they should bring refined oil, gives them the connection to Hashem. Al yidei zeh nasa yisrim v'yisafa b'Moshe. The Rebbe adds a very important point. This itself brings an increase, an advantage, a yisroin, an advantage, v'hisafa, and in addition, in Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, without this communication to the Yidden, is lacking something. How does Moshe Rabbeinu gain aliyah advantage? By the very communication of this to the Jewish people. That's what he says. And he's going to explain that soon. Time is it? Okay. We'll stop here, and in Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will learn more. Okay? Seid gesund, Psuras Teufels. Bye-bye.